You are listening to the Motherhood Unstressed podcast, and I'm your host, Liz Carlisle. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am so glad that you're here and that we're spending some time together today. And I'm absolutely thrilled to share the work of my guest with you. It's having people like this on that helps all of us, including myself, get better, to understand ourselves more, to grow as a mother, as a leader in our own lives, and to impart that positive ripple effect to our children. And my guest this week is Brittany Watkins, and she is literally changing lives with her research and work into EFT tapping, and that stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. And Brittany specializes in weight loss and emotional eating disorders. She's taught over 100,000 women to self-heal through trauma-informed therapy. And through years of practice, she's discovered the 7 emotional weight loss blockers that are commonly experienced by women. And through that understanding, helps students to physically disrupt their own deep-rooted traumas in the brain and cure things like emotional eating, often in only a few sessions. And she was so kind to do a session with me before this episode. And I brought in Nutella because that's something that I'm absolutely obsessed with. I could eat it every day, and it's not necessarily the best thing for you. And so we did the session. She took me through all the different tapping points and guiding me with visualization as we went through. And it's just such a subtle shift. I mean, I did have to take a nap after it. I'm not going to lie. Something definitely happened. And then ever since, I would look at the Nutella. I wouldn't even think about it. And the craving, the desire that I had for it was completely gone. And I don't know how else to explain it except that it was there one day and it was gone after doing this process with her the next. So I fully believe in it. The science is catching up. They now can scan your brain, before, during, and after a tapping session, and you see how the brain has rewired just from doing this subtle physical tapping procedure. So I'm so excited to share her work with you. And of course, she is being so generous by giving all of us a 50% discount on her Think and Thin tapping program. It's all linked in the show notes. You just use the code UNSTRESSED to get access to that. And, if this is something that you've never heard of, obviously we're going to go all into that in the episode. But then, check it out for yourself. Try it. If everything is possible, then, who knows how this could change your life too. And we're not just talking about losing stubborn weight. Like, this could change so many other traumas. And it's not like you have to have some big trauma in your past. There's also these micro traumas that happen over time, and they affect how we make decisions in our lives and how we act towards others, how we perceive ourselves in situations, the stories that we tell ourselves. And I'm excited. I'm going to go through the program myself and explore that. And I think it does take a bit of bravery to do that. But the result is, you grow as a human, you grow as a person. And what better gift to yourself, to your children, than that? I don't know. I don't know. So if you love this episode, please share it with a friend. I've been loving all the reviews coming in. Thank you so much. I want to share this one from Jenny Braz. She said, this is worth all the minutes of tune-in time. I love my earbuds even more because they bring me you in my head. We'll be listening indefinitely. Thank you so much, Jenny. And if you'd like your review read, please leave one. And who knows, you might be broadcasted to all the listeners out there all over the world. So without further ado, please enjoy my episode with Brittany Watkins. This episode is brought to you by Public Goods, the one-stop shop for affordable, sustainable, healthy household products. From home and personal care to premium pantry staples, they've got everything all in one place, and it's in a beautiful aesthetic. So everything kind of looks similar. It all has the Public Goods logo on there, but then it's in this beautiful beige and white packaging. So whatever you bring home, it's going to look good in your pantry or on your sink, I promise you. And the quality of the products is something that really stood out to me. I try a lot of products all of the time, and everything that I purchased and received from Public Goods was just beautiful. It was like the highest quality muesli, the highest quality shampoo, the highest quality hand soap. Everything that I would get, I had the confidence. Each time I would order, I'm okay, I know this is going to be good because it's coming from Public Goods, and it's true. They really do go above and beyond, and I think that that's so important for a company these days to stand out. You want it, you have to go above and beyond, and they certainly do that. So we have worked out an exclusive deal just for the Motherhood Unstressed podcast listeners. You receive $15 off your first public goods order with no minimum purchase. That's right, they're so confident that you will absolutely love their products and come back again and again that they're giving you $15 to spend on your first purchase. You have nothing to lose. Just go to publicgoods.com/unstressed or use the code unstressed at checkout. That's publicgoods.com/unstressed to receive your $15 off your first order. Well, hello, Brittany. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're here.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I admire the work that you're doing. I think that it's fascinating, but to give our audience a little bit of background about you, why don't you take us through your origin story, how you got into this work and why tapping was the way?
So I struggled with emotional eating. And at first I didn't know what emotional eating was. I just woke up one day and my jeans didn't fit anymore. And that was kind of when I started dieting to try to get the weight off. And what I realized later on is that most people who struggle with an eating disorder will usually have a pretty big traumatic incident or lots of big traumas that will happen to them. And about a year before I was struggling with weight, I was kicked out of my house when I was 15. So I was homeless basically at 15. And that was when I started to eat to fill my emotions, basically to fill the void in myself. And I was super, super lucky to meet an amazing therapist. And one of the things that my dad paid for was for me to go to therapy because, I was a little bit of a troubled kid and rebelling and things like that, but nothing too crazy. But anyway, he knew I needed somebody to talk to, found a guy, and the guy he came into the session one day. He goes, I learned this weird thing over the weekend. He goes, I don't know. I think it might help you. You're going to think it's ridiculous, but let's just give it a shot. And I remember we started doing it and he had me tapping on my face and saying things out loud, like I love myself and these affirmations. And I remember feeling so weird. I was so embarrassed. I was just I was also 15, right? So everything weird then. But I left his office and I felt so free. It was like the first time all of the yuckiness, all of the anger, all the pain, all the sadness, all the trauma, everything that I'd gone through with my parents getting, abandoned and all of that just left my body. And so every week I'd go back, I'd be like, hey, Steve, let's do that tapping thing. And so I started realizing that the more I tapped, the better my life became. And so, by the time I was 17 or something like that, I had my own car. I mean, I was the kid that was going to end up on the streets kind of kid. I was trouble. I was getting into, trouble with all the wrong kids, drugs, alcohol, all the things. And by the time I was 17, I had my own apartment. I had a car. I had a great job. I had patched things up with my family. And I just realized that the more I used this technique on my emotions and to help me process the things that were going on in my life, the better everything got. And so, fast forward into my early 20s, I had a really prestigious career in real estate and I was doing very well financially. And then the real estate market crashed. And I just decided, I said, you know what? I want to do something that helps. I don't want to just make money for the sake of making money anymore. And that was when I realized that I wanted to teach this technique. But the weird thing was that while the technique worked for everything else, it worked for all the pain and all the sadness and, anything that I went to therapy about, it would kind of help me process it a lot faster, whereas normally if you go to therapy, it takes you a while to get past something. I was just moving through it like that, but it wasn't helping my emotional eating. And so it was weird. I used myself like a human science experiment for probably 15 years trying to figure out how I could get tapping to work for emotional eating. And it was all the gurus and all the people that were supposed to be way smarter than me, way more educated than me, PhDs. These people were smart people. No one had this thing figured out. And I'm just just watching YouTube videos. I'm like, why doesn't anyone have this thing figured out? And so I felt the answer was Brittany, you're going to be the one to figure this out. So over the course of, some trial and error, I would say another about 5 years, I discovered kind of my own unique recipe to help women overcome emotional eating, overeating, stress eating, all types of disordered eating by looking at the subconscious mind and the reasons that we overeat. And whereas a lot of people will tell you why you have the problem, we go in and fix the problem. So we can literally do one session and say you've been struggling with food cravings. Well, now you know about the food craving thing. You could be struggling with a chocolate addiction for your whole life or a sugar addiction for your whole life. And in one session, you will not have that relationship with that food anymore. You will be over it. So it works extremely, extremely fast because it really gets to the core. I've been able to figure out what is the root cause of this in the subconscious mind. And then by using a combination of EFT, tapping, and a whole bunch of other methods that I've been trained in as like my own kind of secret sauce, we just take that problem out of the brain. And it's like, people will come back and tell me they'll be like, dude, I forgot I even had that problem. Right. I haven't been eating emotionally in 2 weeks. And I'm like, well, how long did you before that? They're like 30 years, and it's not a struggle anymore. So when you really understand the core issues and we know how to clean them out and heal them, there is no willpower anymore. You don't have to use willpower. You just don't have the problem, which is what's so cool. And that's what I love so much about this technique.
Yeah. And I think that that's the biggest thing because willpower is so fleeting. It's why there's a new diet book every 6 months out on the market. Like it doesn't work. So take us back to the beginning, like the structure of the brain. What's actually going on when we do incur a trauma? I mean, we all grow up with traumas in some way, I'm assuming, unless you have a perfect childhood, which doesn't exist. So take us through what's actually happening on a physiological level to the brain.
Yeah. So this is one of the ways that I explain tapping scientifically is because I'm a nerd and I always have to understand why something's working. But essentially, this is going to be my own very, very basic explanation of it. But essentially, there's a place in the area of the brain called the hippocampus. And if you think about it like a sponge, it's kind of like this circular thing and it has a whole bunch of little tiny dots on it. And what happens is with brain imaging devices, we can go in and see that when there's an indentation in the hippocampus, that is a impression. It's something that caused it made an impression with us. Basically, we held on to it. It's a memory. Mm. And so what ends up happening is, and it's a traumatic memory. And so what ends up happening is when something like, for instance, let's just say a dog bit you when you were 5. You might grow up thinking that you don't like dogs, or you might not even remember that a dog bit you. A dog may have just scared you. Okay. Mm-hmm. So now every time you see a dog, you're like, yeah, I'm not really into dogs. Like, don't really like dogs. What ends up happening is when your subconscious mind gets triggered with that memory, it sends a signal to the amygdala, which is your body's fight or flight response. And so that's what makes you feel anxious, scared, react in a negative way. And what I love so much about tapping is that we use the first part to identify what the core problem is. So in this case, it was the dog lunging at you. That created the fear, that created the signal. And then with tapping, what tapping does is it sends a flood of serotonin to that part of the brain in the hippocampus, and it severs the fight or flight response. Yeah. So you can still remember the thing that happens to you, but it's like it happened to someone else. It's like you don't have the same physical response anymore. So we can do that with any trauma. Think about, somebody yelling at you, or, a lot of people will have abusive parents or alcoholics, or, something someone said that was really hurt and mean. We can build our entire realities around these negative things that happen to us. Right. And when you can apply tapping on things like this, especially, with food, it's a game changer. It's a game changer.
Yeah. I'm trying to understand though, how in the world that severs that signal, because it is deep within the brain. How does that happen? It's just incredible.
Yeah, we've seen it with brain imaging devices honestly, for the first 20 years, they just explained it with energy. They're like, oh, it's just an energetic circuit. Like, we didn't have science showing us what happens in the brain. So now we can see, oh, it's sending a signal. The serotonin is, cutting the neural pathway, basically, signal. So we can actually see the science of what's happening in the brain. But before that, we didn't really know why it worked. The guy who discovered this was a therapist who was trained in acupuncture, and he had a client who was afraid of water for 15 years, and he was doing general exposure therapy with her. And he just had this idea one day to put his fingers on some of her acupuncture points, just his finger, while he was exposing her to the water. And after working with her for 15 years, she jumps up out of the water. She was in a bathtub with this much water. It was that was trying to make her comfortable with, being in water. After a couple of minutes of just him applying this pressure, she jumps out of the bathtub. She runs to the back of his house and jumps into his swimming pool and starts splashing around saying, I'm not afraid of water anymore. I'm not afraid of water anymore. So he was like, yo, what just happened? That was crazy. So he just started experimenting. So this whole modality kind of came about with just somebody being curious about the mind and realizing that when you touch these different points on the body, that it had a very, very powerful effect on the brain.
God, thank God he had a pool.
I know, right? I know.
We wouldn't be here right now.
I know, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so take us through the different tapping points. Take us through the process itself, because, as someone listening to this, you might not know that you have this subconscious issue. You might know you have an issue, but you don't know the root cause. And I think for me, for a lot of women, we know we have these issues, but what actually caused it is so far gone. It's so deep in the subconscious. There's no way. Do you have to know the issue going in, or does it sever it just by doing the process?
Yeah, you do. So I talk about something. I discovered 7 subconscious weight loss blockers that cause people to hold on to extra weight. And I can talk about a couple of them just because this is really powerful information. I mean, this is the stuff that I was searching for when I was on my, 15-year mission to overcome my eating disorder. So one of them is actually a pretty heavy topic, but I call it body boundary violation. So it can be anything from sexual trauma to somebody just looking at you funny. A lot of women have had this experience where we were in situations, maybe we were a little bit drunk, a guy came on to us, pressured us in a way that made us feel really uncomfortable. And what you don't realize is that will tell your subconscious mind that it's not safe to be sexy, or it's not safe to be beautiful. And so a lot of women will put on, anywhere from 10 to 100 pounds after something like that happened. I mean, and obviously there's way more extreme cases of it too, which we all know about. But that is probably the number one most common reason that women struggle with extra weight. If they can't get it off, if you've been dieting a lot, if you have, constantly tried to lose weight, but you can't, I really want to encourage you to explore that and to think about, what happened. A lot of women have this tendency to blame themselves. Oh, well, I was drunk. I shouldn't. I'll give you a good example. One of my clients, she said, she was in Cancun. It was her 18th birthday, and her parents told her not to leave the hotel. She was there with her girlfriend. Of course, they left the hotel. She meets this guy at a club. They go back to his house. Her and her friend are there. The guy's drunk. He pushes her up against the wall. She freaks out. Nothing ends up happening. She got out of there. Nothing ends up happening. Now, later on, she's 35 years old. She's got 2 kids. She can't figure out why she can't lose 40 pounds. We do 3 sessions with her. That's it. 3 sessions with her. I have this group called the Think and Then Advance. So I talk to them twice a month, and then they work with my coaches. She comes to one of the calls and she goes, you guys, I have lost 40 pounds. It was a month. It all melted away. That is how powerful this stuff is. When you understand those things, it's whew, those are the things that are the real game changers. Another thing can be too, I call it what happened last time. So some people will have this experience where maybe they've lost weight before in the past. And then somebody says something to them. Like I once had a student of mine say, oh, well, one of my friends said, now that you've lost all this weight, you're different. You're not the same to be.
Sure.
And that seems so simple, but it made her feel so sad and so insecure that she was going to lose her friend, that she ended up putting all the weight back on. We're also very tribal. If there's a subconscious, another one of the weight loss blockers is, well, if I lose weight, somebody else is going to be upset.
Yeah.
Maybe my husband will be jealous or a little insecure. Maybe I won't want to be with him anymore. Or maybe I'm going to make my sister jealous because my sister's also overweight and we're not going to have, that anymore. Tribal, leaving a tribe and being different from the tribe is so much deeper than we realize. It's so deeply ingrained in us to just want to fit in and want to be with our tribe, because that's how we survive. We've always survived in tribes. So yeah, there are some very, very deep things that most people don't think about when it comes to weight. It's not the diet and exercise. I mean, obviously those things are important, but if you don't understand the subconscious mind and what's actually going on when you think about releasing weight or changing your body, if you're not aware of these things, you won't change.
This episode is brought to you by Faherty. Faherty is a clothing line fueled by purpose and optimism. For them, life and work are both family affairs. The company was actually started by two brothers, twins to be exact, and they melded their love of fashion and business acumen into a brand that was not only beautiful and well done, offering you clothing that's going to last a lifetime, but also that's doing it in the right way for the client, for the planet, for everyone involved. And I think, now we know how destructive the fashion industry can be for the planet. And Faherty is taking such a progressive stance for fashion, for doing things the right way. And so I'm so honored to work with them and to share their clothes with you. And of course, if you're listening to this, I'm going to get you a good deal. With the code Motherhood Unstressed, that will save you 25% off everything on the site. If you click the link in the show notes, that'll automatically apply the 25% off on your order. Or if you're doing this later, just add Motherhood Unstressed at checkout.
You're going to put your relationship for most people will put their relationship first, right? If you feel like, hey, maybe I'm going to leave my husband if I lose weight, or maybe he'll be upset, you're going to put that first, right? So anyway, these can be very scary topics for people, but I just find it's so eye-opening for so many people, especially if you've struggled with this problem for a really long time.
Yeah. And I think so many people beat themselves up. It's my motivation. I'm not good enough. I'm not disciplined enough. And they're lashing themselves, day in and day out. Like I know so many women who do this, and it's like, it's really not that, it's these deep rooted issues. And I think the more I read, especially this year, about the subconscious and the power it really has and the stories we tell ourselves and how those stories affect almost all of our decisions, on a daily basis, like that's immense. That's an immense influence. And you're just talking about coming in and slicing and dicing and healing it, really, like resetting that old tape that we've all been playing over and over again. I mean, you are incredible in the work that you're doing. And I think that this is just the beginning.
It is. Well, I've broken it down to a science. Like I've had all the problems, And so I've been able to really break down every single issue. Are you eating too much? Are you stressed out at work? Is it emotional? Was there trauma? We have an inventory of all the things you could possibly have. And then when we work with people, we figure out which ones you have and which ones you don't have. And then we just go hard on those. So I always say within 3 to 6 months, the people that are in, some of my more intensive programs, within 3 to 6 months, their emotional eating goes away permanently and it never comes back.
Wow.
Never comes back. And I've been doing this for 10 years now. So we have research on that and we can see that the results are permanent. There aren't a lot of diets that will do that offer those kind of results. There aren't.
Right.
There aren't.
Right.
Yeah.
Without, subjecting your health to some dangerous things like doing just, meat for a long time, things like that, or like taking some kind of supplement. This is such a natural, effective way of handling that. But I want to go through the process. And actually you saw, I polled my audience and I said, give me your cravings, give me your issues so we can address it. And one I thought was really good. And, kind of like the one we did in our session, Jenny Lee, her Instagram is Jen lives healthy, and she says she craves Lindt chocolate and peanut butter almost every day. So what would you do? I'm sure she's going to be listening to this. Take us through the standard procedure.
Okay. So here, I think what'll be more powerful is, for me to break down why you have those cravings. And then you can share maybe what your experience, when we work together on this. So here's the thing about food cravings is that food cravings, and I love this example too, because it's so specific. Lindt chocolate with peanut butter. What was it? Lindt chocolate with peanut butter?
Yes. Yeah. Every day,
okay.
She says.
Okay. Every day. Okay. So most people, if you think about, if you're here listening and you struggle with a food craving, just pick one of the foods. And if you think about that food, like chocolate or, chocolate chip cookies or, something like this, Lindt chocolate with peanut butter, think about what your earliest memory is of eating that food. Who did you used to eat that food with? So 9 times out of 10, people will say, oh, I used to bake cookies with my grandma. That used to be a candy that my friend and I would buy every time we were coming home from school. And so this is what happens is that the subconscious mind links these really positive feelings to the food. And then whenever, we're adults, we have stressful lives, shit's going on, everything's going a little bit crazy. We subconsciously crave the comfort of the childhood feeling that we felt through these foods. And so that's why, many people you won't just be able to have one because you can never get enough of grandma's love. You can never get enough of, mom's nurturing, if that's where that comes from. Often people will say like, oh yeah, every Sunday I used to go out and have ice cream with my dad and I didn't see him very often. That was our special day. So anyway, so it's really, really easy to uncouple these cravings once you can identify where it comes from. And then I have a free video too. I think it'll probably be easier since this is a podcast. I have a free video where I will walk them through it and they can actually follow along and do the tapping points and everything with me in the video.
Love it.
And
that'll be in the show notes.
Yeah, I'll give the URL to that too. It's really easy. It's pushthefoodaway.com. Yeah, so they can have an experience just like the one that I gave you the other day. But it's funny to I love doing that technique with people because it's just you do it once and it doesn't take the food away from you, but it makes it very easy for you to not want it.
This is the crazy thing. Like I knew a little bit about tapping before. My love for Nutella is beyond. And, as I shared in the meeting, it was because I found Nutella when I first went to France when I was like 13 or 14 years old. So prime, impressionable age. And it was this feeling of freedom and exploring Europe and trying new foods and being out there with my friends and just going through the why was it? I had never thought about it. I never thought that might be why I had this attachment. I just thought it was a really yummy food, but it makes sense that wouldn't happen to every other yummy food in my life. It was like this one thing. And so we go through the process, you take us through the process. And I love the ball of light that you brought in, and I'll let you talk about that. But at the end of it, and it didn't even take that long, at the end of it, you had us taste the food again, and I tasted it, and I swear, all of the joy, all of the real like yumminess, the feeling that you get was like flat. And it literally to me tasted like almost chemicals in my mouth. And I was like, what? Like, what? Like, it was like you had given me some kind of pill that changed my taste buds or something. I mean, it was that impactful, and it couldn't have been more than 10 minutes that we did this. And then I'm like, okay, well, maybe this is just placebo. Maybe this is just my mind. And then like shortly after that meeting, I felt like I had to take a really long nap. I slept for like an hour and a half. And then ever since, it's sitting on my counter and I look at it and I don't get that craving. I don't get that urge. And I'm being 1000% honest right now when I say that. Like it's just completely transformed my relationship to that particular food. And I can't really explain it. Like even talking to you and getting the background behind it, I can't really explain it. Like it just is.
Well, we told your brain that if you look at your brain like a human filing cabinet, your brain had this experience going to Europe where it was like freedom and it was new experiences and it was, all this fun with your friends and away from parents. And then you had Nutella. And so this literally happens with people where Nutella and the fun and freedom just get put into the same filing cabinet. And so what we did through the process is we basically just told your brain, Nutella has its own filing cabinet, and this experience is in a different filing cabinet. They're two separate things. They don't belong together. So you still remember the fun and the joy of going on those trips, right? It's just
absolutely.
Yeah. So we just decoupled the Nutella from that experience. So you can still think about it. You can still feel really good, and you don't need the Nutella to do that for you. And that's the way that it works with all, food cravings, is that we take the emotion. Good food is still going to be good food. But when you have this love and passion and freedom and comfort, emotional connection with it, it just makes it taste so much better. That's why we'll go overboard, is because it's coupled with those things. And so once we decouple that, and it's, then it just becomes food. And then you're right, Nutella is kind of chemically. And so it makes sense that you would taste it for the true, authentic, version of what it is.
Man, so what would you say to people who are like, well, I don't want to lose that. This is such a great pleasure in my life. Yeah, I want to lose weight, but I don't want to lose how good it feels when I sit down to this big bowl of pasta or this toast with Nutella. I mean, what would you say to the woman who's a little reticent to that?
Yeah, no, it's a really valid question. So I still love food, and I still love eating good food. So it doesn't take away those pleasurable moments. What it does is it makes you, it allows you to have those pleasurable moments without going totally overboard. So you'll have like a Nutella toast, but you'll just have one slice. You won't have three. You can have a few squares of chocolate. You won't have the whole bar. You can have, a small scoop of ice cream and be totally satisfied, right? Or a few slices of pizza instead of, the whole thing, right? So it's like, and we're always going to overindulge, but what this does is it allows you, and I think it's more pleasurable actually when you learn to eat these foods, not learn, but when your brain starts eating these foods out of actual joy rather than the emotional urge for it.
Yeah, I know. I totally agree. When you can actually sit down and fully be present in eating something, like that's something that I think every woman wants, crazy kids in the background or not, like we all want to really be there. And I've read too, like when you're actually really focused on eating and smelling your food, like it goes to your body more efficiently. I don't know quite all the science behind that, but that's what I read. If you're mindlessly eating, even if you eat the same amount, you're getting less nutrition.
Yeah. And it also creates a lot of the feel-good hormones too. So there's way more serotonin and dopamine that is released when you're eating and you're really enjoying and you're able to be present. And I cannot think of a time that I was eating emotionally and having a lot of pleasure. It was like it was masking a stressful experience rather than me being able to just sit and enjoy it. So it's so much better for your body. And it just makes eating and food so much better. And it helps with, if you want to release weight or if you want to, just feel better and not eat so much junk, it helps with that too, obviously.
I love how you just said release weight, because that's such a different way to frame it. So many people say lose weight, but like release, it is such a release by doing this.
Well, because your brain doesn't want to lose anything. And I usually say release fat, because cancer patients lose weight. You don't want to lose weight. You want to release fat, right? If that's the journey that you're on. It does. It's a small reframe, but it has a very, very powerful impact. If you're walking around and you're like, I want to lose weight. I want to lose weight. I want to lose weight.
Yeah.
Your brain is very primal. And it's like, no, you don't, girl. I'm trying to keep you alive. You don't want What are you talking about? You're healthy. So,
well, and I think too, like that comfort aspect, like the brain doesn't want to lose the comfort, the emotional aspect. And you're like, well, no, like this is separate and here's how, and I'm going to show you how. Like I don't know why so many more therapists and doctors, why isn't this out there in the mainstream when clearly it's so effective? You've been doing this for over 10 years. Why isn't it? I mean, it's just because they want to sell pills. Like what's going on? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I really do believe there's a core group of us that are leaders. It's growing exponentially. Like, I mean, just the fact that I'm doing this podcast, my business is, it tripled during quarantine.
Wow.
I think people are used to People are getting more used to alternative modalities way more than they ever were. I really hope in 10 years that this will be the new meditation. That's my intention with like just getting the message out there, because people need this. I mean, you don't have to go to therapy for years. You don't have to struggle. You do have to work with a good, you do have to have a good guide. Not all guides are good, but this is a very, very powerful modality. And, things that take years that in therapy, or maybe that you never overcome in therapy, you can overcome in just one session. It can really be that easy. That's one of the reasons I love teaching this. And obviously I focus on food and weight struggles, but use it for anything. Look it up on YouTube and learn how to use this tool in your life, because it'll change your life.
I mean, what would you say to the woman who is listening to this and is excited about it, the possibility of changing everything, of losing 40 pounds, after a couple sessions? I mean, it's almost unbelievable, but she also is scared to dive deep into her own subconscious, into her own traumas. I mean, speaking for myself, that would be a little scary, because I know there's a lot still to unpack, like stuff I don't even know. So what would you say to her to take that first step?
So I always like to give free experiences. And so that's why I wanted to give you the pushthefoodaway.com, the URL. They can watch a video, go through a free experience with me, and just see what happens for you, and see if it's something that you connect with. It might not be time for you to have this and to go through this process, but I guarantee the best time investment that you can ever make in your whole life. Because once you learn how to change this, you can change anything in your life. You're unhappy with your work. And this happens to a lot of our students. A lot of our students will say, I'll say, like, listen, we're going to go, we're going to be changing some stuff in your subconscious. Don't be surprised if, some things start to look different in your life. So maybe some friends won't seem to fit anymore, or maybe your job will not really feel like a great fit. We have girls that are like, Brittany, oh my gosh, I got a paycheck in the mail. I got a raise. My boss gave me the job I've been dreaming of. This friend just finally stopped calling me, and I realized that she was kind of a drag anyway. So really, you can learn how to create your own universe. So anyway, I wanted to give that to you. And, people can go, we also have, I have a 6-week program, kind of get you started. It goes over the 7 subconscious blockers. As part of being on your show, I'm giving your listeners a 50% discount on that when they say when they use your promo code. What did we say to?
Unstressed.
Unstressed. I want people to have this information. So you get 50% off if you want to just dive in and see if it's for you, and, go through it. And I give you a full experience. You can go through the whole tapping thing, for free. You don't have to buy anything. But if you want to go deeper into there's information out there. And, I always, like, when I look at myself now and the business that I built, I made it for who I was 15 years ago, because I was looking for a me. If I had a me, I would have saved so much time and so much struggle. And so that's what I always hope to be to women, is like, there are easy ways to get out of this. And it's not as hard as you think. We are talking about some strong things and some big topics, but when you tap on it, it literally, you said 10 minutes. Can you deal with like 10 minutes of discomfort to have a lifetime of freedom? And I would even say, like, the process itself was very soothing, even just the physical act of tapping when you're dealing with like these heavier issues, or just exploring what these issues even exist. Like, it was actually very soothing. You almost felt held while you were doing it. You were being held by you, and then you were also kind of holding yourself in that moment too. So I would encourage anyone listening to this to try it out and see the shift that happens. And then, like you said, all these other people had these things fall into place. And I really believe, everyone listening to this knows, like, I'm big into the universe and energy. I really believe that when we elevate our vibration, when we do go to a different existence, really based on our own energy that we're putting out, the universe responds to that, and things do change and shift. And so, that friend might say, you've changed, but isn't that kind of a beautiful thing? Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I love so much about this. I've gotten all my friends into tapping, my whole family's into tapping, and it's just really cool to watch how quickly their lives transform, bad relationships, or, they'll start dating better guys and just have more confidence. Some of the students will show up and just, and say to me, I just love myself.
Yeah.
And they're almost confused by it. Like, how can I feel so good, like I'm not even at my goal yet, but I don't even care about that. I just love myself so much. And I'm like, yes, so that is the power of this. It's not just about the weight. It is about the total package. And I've never found a modality that does it in this way.
Yeah, no, I certainly haven't either. Like I had to, I think, experienced it myself to really understand, where you're coming from and the work that you're really doing, but I get it now. And it's just like, I think we all want to get to that place where we really do love ourselves and we really do love our lives. Like, of course, life is always going to have its ups and downs. Like, we're here, I think, to learn and to grow spiritually, but to kind of clear the road away so that we can go and fulfill our purpose. Everyone here has a purpose, So to clear that road away and to be able to get there and then to model that for our children. Like, I want to teach my kids how to do this. Do you ever work with children?
I don't personally, but there's a great book about it. I think it's called Tapping for Kids or something. And kids love tapping. It's like a fun game for them. One of my girlfriends, her son had really bad OCD. Apparently OCD is not curable. I didn't know this. 3 sessions with one of my friends, one of my coaches, and it was gone. He's been doing it. He's 14 years old. He's been doing this almost his whole life. She's gone to therapist, 3 sessions, and he's totally done. And he's so much happier. He's got depressions lifted. So yeah, please, read about this for kids. There's a whole book about this. And, if you think your kids could use it, I'm so grateful. I mean, I started when I was 15, and if I could have started at, 8 or 10 or something, I think that's such a gift to your kids.
Yeah. And honestly, that's something I see like on the message boards almost daily on Facebook, like the mom groups, so many people looking to get their daughters into therapy. They're very anxious. They're very obsessed about their weight, on the lighter end, they don't have enough weight. So I think that this would be a really powerful tool, for anyone going through that, because again, as parents, we want to do the best for our kids. And if we don't have a clear path, how are we supposed to model that for them? So,
And that's the best way, I think, for kids to learn too, is like you learn how to be good with you, overcome this, you stop the behaviors, and then they see that and they subconsciously download these things from you too. So even if you don't work with them directly, you kind of are by changing yourself.
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So everything that we mentioned is, of course, going to be in the show notes. If you're out walking your dog or whatever right now, and you can't write this down, it'll all be there for you. Brittany, with everything that you know in life, with everything that you've learned, is there anything that you want to leave the listener with today?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I talk about a lot, this seems like kind of a heavy topic, but, I think men, especially moms and women, we struggle with, we call it overwhelm or we call it frustration. And it's actually anger. And anger has been this emotion that has been like labeled as such a bad thing. And one of the best techniques that I have been able to teach has been a way to process your anger, to release anger out of your body without having to lash out at anybody else, without having to get mad at your kids or anything like that. There's a way that you can release your anger, process it. It not only helps you stop feeling frustrated, stop feeling overwhelmed, it clears the space in your brain, but you become a more centered, empowered woman when you identify your feelings of overwhelm, frustration, and anger, and you're able to release it. You're able to make better decisions. You're able to be a better mom. You're able to show up in a better way. So I wish somebody would have been able to help me identify when I was feeling angry or when I was feeling overwhelmed. That was me just kind of keeping my emotions inside. A lot of people also struggle with anxiety. This is, women do this, especially women that eat, we're constantly pushing everything down. We're holding it in. And you got to get that out of your body. You got to get that out of your body and do it in a safe way. And you will notice the transformation in your family. You will notice a big transformation in your life, and everybody in your family will respond to you better.
Yeah. I can't tell you, like the mother, especially in the household, rules the energy in the household. And I'm speaking for myself, but I'm also looking at the household that I grew up in and like my sisters and things like that. Like how we are, how we show up affects everything and everyone, even the dog.
Exactly. Just again, if you want to have the free experience, pushthefoodaway.com. Super easy, just to make it easy for you. And then, go through the tapping experience. And if you want more, use the unstressed code to get 50% off.
Beautiful. And where can our listeners find you online?
Yeah, Instagram, Brittany Watkins Tapping, or BrittanyWatkins.com is my website. And you can find all my social media links there. You can read more about me and watch some videos and stuff.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Brittany. I could talk to you for hours. This is amazing work. Thank you for the work that you're doing in the world, literally changing lives. And I can't wait to do the program. I'm going to do it myself.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Liz, for having me.
You have been listening to the Motherhood Unstressed podcast, and I'm your host, Liz Carlisle. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so grateful that we got this time together today. And if you love this episode, I would so appreciate it if you would share it out on your social media. Make sure to tag us at Motherhood Unstressed. Connect with us at Motherhood Unstressed. I'd love to connect with you and see where the work has gone in the world. And make sure that you subscribe so that you never miss out on an amazing interview with an incredible guest or our weekly guided meditations every Wednesday.